Hello, beautiful Libra. Let me ask you something straight away. What if this week, the universe doesn't ask for your permission, it just acts? Because that's exactly the kind of shift you're about to experience. And trust me, I didn't find this video by accident. This is not your typical horoscope forecast. This is an energetic download crafted for your spirit, your timing, and your higher truth. Welcome to Zodiac Whisper Tarot, where the stars are not just observed, they speak. And today, Libra, they're speaking directly to you. You may have sensed it already, a restlessness behind your calm, a soft but persistent whisper urging you to look deeper, pause longer, feel more honestly. Maybe you've been trying to keep things together. Maybe you've been everyone's peacekeeper again. But here's the truth, that perfectly poised mask you've been wearing? It's starting to crack, and that's a divine thing. Because this week, something inevitable is arriving in your life. Not to destroy your balance, but to redefine it. There's a sacred shift happening beneath the surface of your decisions, your conversations, your relationships, even your silence. It's subtle, yes. But it's potent. It's the kind of change that the stars conspire for, not because you asked, but because you're ready. You see, Libra, your soul has already signed the permission slip. This isn't about control. This is about surrender. This is about remembering who you are when you're no longer managing everyone else's comfort. Now, take a moment. Breathe. Reflect. What if everything that's been delayed, confused, or out of sync in your life is aligning in ways you just can't see yet? What if all those questions you've been carrying quietly, am I being honest with myself? Is this really enough? What would happen if I stopped pretending I'm okay? Are about to be answered not with logic, but with experience. I invite you to stay with me through this entire message. This is a moment of alignment, not entertainment. And if you're here, it's because something within you already feels it. You're on the edge of a sacred decision. Comment the number 6 down below if your heart is open to healing, to harmony, to softness that doesn't require shrinking yourself. That number holds Libran frequency. It's the vibration of beauty, compassion, and divine balance. Let it anchor you into this message. Let me also take a heartfelt moment to thank you. Truly. Your presence here, your comments, your likes, your shares, and every single subscription, it's what keeps this channel alive. It allows me to show up and deliver soul-centered, transformational readings every single week on Zodiac Whisper Tarot. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And Libra, trust me when I say, you'll want to stay until the very end of today's reading. What the universe is revealing this week, it's nothing short of breathtaking. So tell me, my loyal Libras, what part of your spirit whispered for you to click on this video today? Sometimes, the signals that something is shifting don't come in thunderclaps or bold revelations. They arrive in the quiet discomfort of doing what you've always done, only to feel strangely out of place. That's exactly the kind of energy Justice Reversed brings to you, dear Libra. This card, so naturally yours in its upright state with its love for balance, fairness, and clarity, now appears inverted, asking you to look inward. What happens when the harmony you've maintained starts to feel like a beautiful room you no longer belong in? When the scales you hold for everyone else have grown heavy with compromise, but light on personal truth? This isn't judgment. It's awakening. You're not being told you've done wrong, far from it. You've done what Libra does best. You've kept the peace, smoothed the tensions, and made others feel seen. But this week, the question rises, at what cost to your own soul? There's a gentle invitation unfolding here not to abandon your nature, but to expand it. To ask, can there be true justice without honesty to yourself first? And are you living a truth that's rooted in peace, or simply in the avoidance of discomfort? In a world that often values appearance over authenticity, it's easy to slip into roles that seem noble, being the peacemaker, the good listener, the one who absorbs the emotions so others don't have to. And yet, there's a soft, steady voice within you whispering, "But what about me?" That voice doesn't need to shout. It just needs you to pause long enough to hear it. Each group of Libra this week is moving through their own unique recalibration. If you're born between September 23rd and October 2nd, you may be feeling this energy in your closest relationships. Endings might not be the disasters they seem to be on the surface. Sometimes love evolves by stepping back. Sometimes it deepens by redefining its terms. Holding boundaries is not rejection, it is an act of quiet self-respect. Let that truth settle into your bones. For Libras born between October 3rd and 13th, the cosmic pressure may rise around your professional life. Decisions you've postponed are now presenting themselves with an urgency you can't ignore. Whether it's an opportunity or an ultimatum, your spirit already knows the answer. What's waiting to grow and you won't do so through overthinking it will thrive in commitment. Make the choice that supports your peace, not just your image. And for those born from October 14th to 22nd, the energy cuts even deeper. It touches your self-image. You may feel unrecognizable to yourself, and that's not a failure. That's growth. When the masks begin to fall, when the titles and social roles lose their grip, what remains? Hopefully, you. The real you. Not the curated, ever agreeable you, but the honest, complex, beautiful soul you've kept tucked behind diplomacy for far too long. Justice reversed isn't telling you that you're out of balance. It's telling you that the old balance you fought to preserve no longer reflects who you're becoming. And as with all sacred transitions, discomfort isn't a punishment, it's a signal. Like a loose seam in a favorite coat, tugging just enough to remind you, something no longer fits. As you move through this space, remember, you are not alone. Growth doesn't have to be loud to be real. Realignment doesn't need a spotlight. It begins quietly, with small acts of truth. Choose them. And in the words of quiet wisdom passed down through generations, not from any doctrine, but from the kind of loving clarity that speaks to all hearts, know this: you were not created to maintain false peace. You were created to stand in your truth, and from there, create the kind of harmony that heals, not hides. Keep going, Libra. You're right on time. It often begins as something small, an extra favor, an unspoken yes, a delayed boundary. At first, it feels natural, even generous. You care. You give. You smooth the wrinkles in others' days. But after a while, that beautiful instinct to nurture becomes tangled with expectation, and suddenly you find yourself giving from a place that no longer feels full. That's the quiet lesson of the number 6 in numerology, a number that glows with love, beauty, compassion, and care, yet also carries within it the tender shadow of self-forgetting. This week, that number becomes your teacher, Libra. 6 invites you not only to love but to examine how you love, and what it costs you when you forget to include yourself in the circle of care. Your heart has always been generous, and your energy naturally harmonizes. But the universe is asking you now, is your kindness rooted in truth, or in the fear of being misunderstood if you disappoint someone? You may notice situations this week where saying yes feels heavier than usual, where offering support leaves you tired instead of nourished. Don't ignore that signal. That's not selfishness, it's clarity. There is a delicate art to holding space for others while still honoring your own soul. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to decline. You are allowed to say, "This doesn't feel right for me right now," without explanation. Pearl pink, your color of the week, reminds you of softness not only toward others, but toward yourself. It holds the energy of tenderness, of inner healing, of compassion that doesn't need to prove anything. This shade doesn't scream, it glows. It doesn't chase approval, it radiates inner acceptance. Surround yourself with it however you can, whether through clothing, decor, or visualization, and let it remind you that gentleness is a form of strength, especially when directed inward. Writing a love letter to yourself may seem like a strange suggestion at first. But take a quiet moment. Grab a pen. Imagine speaking to the part of you that always shows up, always tries, always gives even when tired. Tell that version of you, "I see you. I thank you. I choose you." Because when you begin to speak to yourself with the same grace you extend to everyone else, something sacred shifts. Your nervous system begins to trust you. Your boundaries become more intuitive. You no longer need to over-explain or over-offer. You start to glow from within. And if you're wondering how this connects to the larger message of your week, it's this: healing is not always a grand event. Sometimes, it's choosing not to text back when you're exhausted. Sometimes, it's gently pulling away from roles that were never yours to carry. Sometimes, it's simply realizing that you don't need to sacrifice your peace to maintain connection. True love, the kind you've longed to receive, often begins with giving yourself the very thing you keep offering others. There's a quiet wisdom that echoes through the ages, that love without self-respect leads to imbalance, and service without truth leads to burnout. This week, let your actions reflect not only your care for others, but your commitment to staying whole. Your kindness matters. But it becomes powerful when it's rooted in authenticity, not obligation. This is how you begin to live in alignment with both your heart and your boundaries. So if you've been waiting for permission to rest, to say no, to choose yourself, you don't need it. You already have the authority. Sometimes the most sacred form of service is self-respect. There are moments in life when the path ahead seems paved with all the usual rules, expectations, and so-called best practices, but something deep within whispers, "Not this time." You've followed the structure. You've played fair. You've waited patiently. And now, Libra, a moment is arriving when integrity will matter more than cleverness, more than appearance, even more than approval. The reversed Hierophant appearing in your reading isn't just a call to break free from the expected, it's an invitation to listen more closely to the part of you that knows right from true, and true from convenient. In work and finances this week, you may find yourself confronted with a choice that looks logical on the outside but feels off at the core. Maybe it's an offer that promises advancement but asks you to bend a little more than you're comfortable with. Maybe it's a partnership that looks secure but leaves no room for your voice. The world may tell you to play along, to smooth it over, to follow protocol. But the stars, dear Libra, are asking you something different now. What would you choose if no one were watching? It's easy to confuse skill with truth. Your natural diplomacy, your brilliant ability to see all sides, has served you well. But sometimes, too much perspective blurs your own. This week, don't lean on your ability to please. Lean on your ability to discern. That quiet sense of what feels grounded and clear, even if it ruffles feathers or walks you off the beaten track. There's wisdom in tradition, yes, but there is also growth in disruption, especially when the structure no longer fits your evolving values. This is not about being rebellious. It's about being honest. And that honesty might look like taking a risk, or saying no, or pausing before you sign something that just doesn't sit right. Take the time to write down 3 core principles you will not compromise on it for money, not for praise, not even for comfort. Keep them somewhere visible this week. Let them anchor you when the noise of success tries to drown out the quiet voice of integrity. Financially, this is also a week to be mindful. Don't rush. Read the fine print. Delay a major investment if it feels rushed. Not because danger is guaranteed, but because your intuition is sharper than it's been in a while, and deserves to be heard. And if an unexpected opportunity shows up that doesn't fit the mold of what you thought success should look like, pay attention. The Hierophant reversed often marks the beginning of a breakthrough disguised as discomfort. And through it all, hold this in your heart: no gain is worth the cost of losing your center. The people who walk in purpose don't always walk the straightest path, but they walk it with clear steps and a clean heart. As a quiet piece of wisdom teaches us, a decision made in peace will always echo peace later on. But a decision made in fear of missing out, of disappointing someone, of being misunderstood tends to scatter more than it stabilizes. You were not made to fit into every system. You were made to know yourself so well that even when the system shifts, your soul stays steady. So as you move through this week, choose the direction that may not be the easiest, but is the most aligned. And trust that in doing so, the universe doesn't just see your Kuragite, reflects it back to you in ways you couldn't have planned. Not every crossroads in love arrives with drama. Sometimes, it comes in the form of silence and unsettled quiet that grows louder the more you try to ignore it. That's where you may find yourself now, Libra. The Two of Swords doesn't scream for urgency, but it hums with hesitation. It paints the picture of someone sitting still, holding 2 opposing truths, unsure which one will hurt less to release. But this week, you're not being asked to find the perfect answer, you're being invited to feel your way forward. Your heart, so often shaped by balance and fairness, might feel torn between staying in something familiar or listening to a deeper longing that's been patiently waiting for your attention. You've done what you were taught, you've analyzed, you've rationalized, you've considered how your decisions would affect everyone involved. But here's the gentle truth: sometimes clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. Sometimes, it comes from trusting more softly. When it comes to love, Libra, your natural gift is harmony. But harmony is not the absence of conflict, it is the presence of truth, spoken kindly. And that's the inner work the universe is placing gently in front of you now. What if love isn't about keeping the peace, but about creating a connection where both people feel safe enough to be fully seen even when it's messy, even when it means tension. This week, if you find yourself in a place of indecision about someone, whether it's a partner, a potential relationship, or even a friendship, pause the mental debate and ask yourself this instead: am I holding on because I truly feel love here, or because I fear the emptiness that might come after I let go? The answer doesn't need to come immediately. It may come in fragments: a sigh you didn't know you let out, a conversation that leaves you more tired than tender, or a single moment when your body tightens instead of softens. These are the intuitive breadcrumbs that will lead you home. Give yourself permission to want what you really want. Not what sounds good, or looks good, or keeps the peace, but what brings you alive. Write it down: 3 things your heart truly needs in a relationship to feel safe, seen, and nourished. Don't edit. Don't shrink. Don't write what you think a good person would ask for. This is your truth. And the person who's meant for you won't require you to translate it. If you're afraid of hurting someone by choosing yourself, remember, avoiding discomfort doesn't prevent pain, it only postpones it. Real love grows in the presence of honesty. And just as the stars shift each night without asking permission, so too are you allowed to evolve in your understanding of love. It is not disloyal to admit that what once fit no longer feels right. There's a simple piece of wisdom passed down through countless quiet hearts: love is patient, but it is also brave. The kind of love that endures is not built on endless sacrifice, it's built on 2 people continually choosing each other, with truth. And that choosing becomes impossible when one person is stuck in pretending. So if you've been waiting for a sign that it's time to stop settling for almost, and begin creating space for entirely, this is it. It's okay to not know exactly what happens next. But it's not okay to keep silencing yourself just to keep the illusion of calm. You weren't made to spend your love story stuck at the fork in the road. You were made to move forward with clarity, with softness, and with a heart that finally knows it deserves more than doubt. There are times when the road ahead feels foggy, not because you've made a wrong turn, but because you're being asked to walk by faith rather than by sight. The moon card in tarot doesn't show up to warn you of danger, it arrives to remind you that not all wisdom comes dressed in certainty. And this week, Libra, it's not clarity you're being called to seek. It's trust. Gentle, deep, soul-level trust. The kind that doesn't wait for full instructions before it takes the first step. You've spent much of your life cultivating understanding. You weigh options. You compare outcomes. You try to stay a few moves ahead, not because you're controlling, but because your peace often depends on preparation. But the moon teaches us that some journeys can't be charted before they're lived. Some answers don't arrive when you ask, but unfold quietly through experience. This is the kind of week that might stir your emotions, heighten your intuition, and challenge your usual need for balanced logic. Rather than resisting the mystery, you're invited to move with it. It's okay to not know what's next. It's okay to feel unsure. What matters is that you don't let confusion convince you that something's wrong. Uncertainty isn't failure, it's transformation in motion. There's a beauty to this in-between space, even if it's uncomfortable. You're not being blocked, you're being reoriented towards something your current mind isn't yet ready to fully grasp. This is a powerful time to create space for stillness, even just a few minutes each day. Sit with yourself. Listen not for a loud voice, but for the subtle signals your heart already knows. A simple practice, like beginning each morning with a quiet affirmation, "I don't need to know everything to move forward," can begin to shift your nervous system out of worry and into trust. You don't have to fight the fog. You just have to move gently through it. If you've been looking for signs of what to do, of what's real, of where this is all going, consider that the most important sign may be the fact that you're still here. Still showing up. Still listening. Still learning how to navigate your own uncertainty with softness instead of fear. One of the greatest quiet teachings we've been given is this: when you've done all you can do, let go of the outcome. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing your grip so the right things can flow toward you, not by force, but by alignment. Writing a letter to the universe may feel unfamiliar, but it can be one of the most grounding ways to untangle what's swirling in your mind. Start by asking questions. Write down your fears, your hopes, what you long to release. Then, close the letter with this: "I trust that what's meant for me will find its way, in perfect time." Leave the rest. You'll be surprised at how the answers begin to reveal themselves, not all at once, but in tiny, perfect synchronicities. This is not a moment for rushing. It's a moment for allowing. The moon doesn't ask you to solve every puzzle, it asks you to dance with the unknown, knowing that not every shadow is something to fear. Some are simply parts of you coming into light. So breathe. Trust your softness. Follow the pull of your own energy. And remember, you don't need to have it all figured out to be exactly where you're meant to be. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply keep going, even when the path disappears under your feet. That's not weakness. That's grace in motion. And now, dear Libra, we arrive at the quiet turning point, the moment when everything you've reflected on in this reading begins to settle not just into your thoughts, but into your actions. You've walked with me through layers of truth, conflict, choice, release, and restoration. You've seen how justice asks for honesty, how the number 6 invites self-love, how the Hierophant reverse nudges you toward integrity, how love requires more than diplomacy, and how the moon teaches you to trust without full visibility. And now, it's your turn to decide. What do you choose to carry forward? Balance has always been your sacred rhythm. But maybe what's changing now is your understanding of what real balance looks like. Maybe it's not found in keeping everyone happy, but in standing firm in who you are. Maybe it's not in endlessly negotiating between extremes, but in claiming the still point within yourself and letting that be enough. This is not about perfection. This is about permission. Permission to pause. Permission to be misunderstood. Permission to speak up even if your voice trembles. Permission to grow out of old versions of peace that only ever serve to keep you small. So take a breath. And ask yourself, where in your life have you been trading truth for comfort? Where have you been shrinking to keep things smooth? And more importantly, what would change if you stopped doing that even just a little? I invite you, with all the gentleness this moment deserves, to begin the realignment today. Not in giant leaps, but in simple, sacred steps. Maybe it means saying no with grace where you used to say yes out of obligation. Maybe it's rewriting your boundaries. Maybe it's sitting quietly with yourself and writing a journal entry titled, "What I Want to Receive, and What I'm Willing to Release." Try writing 5 things in each list. Not to fix yourself, but to meet yourself where you truly are. Because that is where transformation begins, in presence, not pressure. And as you reflect on this journey, I'd love to hear from you. What part of today's message resonated most deeply with you? What's one belief or habit you're ready to let go of, starting now? Drop a comment below and let me know. Just write, "I choose to live in truth," or something in your own words that claims the version of balance you're stepping into. Let your words anchor the energy you're creating. And don't underestimate the power of sharing. It may help someone else feel less alone in their own shift. Before you go, let me take a heartfelt moment to thank you for being here. Your time, your energy, your presence means more than you know. Every like, every share, every thoughtful comment helps this space grow and reach those who need these messages most. You are not just watching this channel, you're co-creating its heartbeat. If you haven't already, I warmly invite you to subscribe to Zodiac Whisper Tarot and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of alignment. We walk through these cycles together, guided by the stars but grounded in real choices, real feelings, and real change. And I promise, what's coming next is just as important as what you've discovered today. So, my radiant Libra, go gently. Go boldly. Go as you are. And remember, what you choose to honor within yourself today becomes the foundation of the life you're building tomorrow. You don't need to please everyone. You don't need to control everything. You just need to stay loyal to the voice inside you that's finally ready to be heard.